It is time for the CompanyCam monthly webinar. Super excited to have Mark Stovel of Strucs joining us today. What is Strucs? It is a leading financial and accounting partner for builders and contractors. And we're going to talk about profits. I would say that's a pretty big deal when it comes to running a business and being a contractor that's running a business. So yeah, you're busier than ever, as we said, kind of in the Zoom title. You're looking at books, you're looking at jobs, you're looking at all this stuff that you need to do, and we need to look at profits, and that's what Mark's here to discuss. I want to do a few housekeeping items before we get started, and then I'm going to let Mark take over and share his expertise and introduce himself. But first and foremost is the chat on the right hand side. So as you're logging in, quick reminder to make sure that the two is pointed to everyone and not just to host and panelists. That way everybody can see your comment and we can all benefit from it. And to test that out, go ahead and jump in and tell us where you're coming in from. City, state, country, whatever it may be. Dive in and let us know where you're coming in from today. Looks like we've got some people joining. We got Houston, Texas, Chicago. Edgar's coming from California. We've got Tyler, Texas, Virginia, Kentucky, Nebraska. Hey, I'm in Omaha. CompanyCam's in Lincoln, Nebraska. There's a big game I hear coming up tomorrow. New Orleans, Jacksonville, Oklahoma City, Ohio. Wow, this is amazing. A big, big group. Other things I want to talk to you, everyone about, and I'll remind everybody at the end. Number one is the Good Contractor podcast. Check it out. I host that with Luke Hanson, the CompanyCam CEO, where we tell real stories about contractors and their journeys, or those that support the contractors. So you can grab that on YouTube. Just look for the Good Contractor podcast or wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, etc. The second thing is this is the first webinar I've gotten to do since we just launched the new CompanyCam community, which is an online forum for you, the contractor, to share best practices, talk about CompanyCam, or really anything you want to talk about. It is 100% free. It's 100% for you. Just go to community.companycam.com. It's free to register, sign up for a username, dive into the discussion. We even had a thread in there called Ask Luke Anything. So you can ask Luke Hanson, the CEO of CompanyCam, anything. And if you know Luke, that is a broad spectrum of topics that we could get into. So dive in, community.companycam.com. I'll have Christian drop that in the chat as well, along with the Good Contractor podcast. Okay, look at all these people joining us. California, Dallas, Texas. I'm from Dallas. Hello, Fort Worth, Bismarck, North Dakota. We have Atlanta, West Michigan, Columbus, Napa. Amazing. We have a GBR. That's right, Jack. Go Big Red. Okay, Mark Stovel's here from Strucs. Mark, I'm so excited to have you joining us today. You said you were going to scare people if you said you were a CPA. I said CPAs are my friend because they keep me on knowing what I'm doing when it comes to taxes. But most importantly, we are going to talk about profits. How are you? I guess welcome to the monthly CompanyCam webinar.
Thank you, John. Yeah, like CPA can be maybe a scary title for some, and some think taxes and bookkeeping, and then that's kind of the nice little box that they put their CPA in. Strucs, we're a little bit different. Yes, we do taxes, we do bookkeeping, but we're more focused on helping contractors and builders create better financial systems, use better tech, and build ultimately better strategy for their business. Small contractors are really underserviced because they do need a lot of support, but many CPAs or accountants, bookkeepers aren't equipped to, first of all, connect to their systems and get them that system, or get them that support, I should say. So we try to be different. I've been in the game over a decade, and I try to, talk with contractors consistently, and figure out what pain points they're going through, and then build my services around helping those builders and contractors run more profitable businesses. So I'm excited to be here. CompanyCam has been, on my radar for a while, and I'm excited to finally be here with you guys to talk to your audience.
Absolutely. I know you have a deck. I'll let you get that called up. Real quick, just let everybody know if you do miss this and you miss this webinar, or you have to leave early or something happens, we will send out this recording this week. So you do have that. So if anybody asks, we just want to make sure that that we will get you a copy of that, and it will be on YouTube as well for you to grab. Okay, Mark, let's dive right in. Um, let, let's stop
Was
the
it?
cash leaks. I love the way this starts. Let's do it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, stop the cash leaks. Sometimes we equate profit with cash. They're not the same thing from an accounting standpoint and for a company sustainability standpoint, but I use cash because we can understand that, if you're expecting $1,000 at the end of the job and you have 500, that your cash is leaking somewhere, but it's also your profit. But yeah, we're going to talk about stopping the cash leaks in your business, how to protect your margins, and then accelerate your business. And those things are directly related. You need to have the right margins in place before you can expect your business to grow sustainably. So quickly, we're going to do a quick intro about Strucs. Most people know CompanyCam, but maybe a little bit on John there, and then get into first things first, and then getting and keeping the right margins in your business, and then a little bit of a demo. We'll see everything in action, and then wrap up with some links at the end. So intro to Strucs CompanyCam. John's here, job site photo tool to manage work from anywhere. I love that. I'm a big proponent of documentation as an accountant. We live and die based on documentation, and CompanyCam is that bolt-on tool to make sure that whether you're using Jobber or JobTread, you have more documentation, you have more support for getting issues in front of customers faster or training your team. Just absolutely love it. Struct. So we are an accounting firm. We help contractors and builders systemize their business to make and keep more money. Simply put, at the end of the day, you're not building a business to make pretty things, although that is part of it. You're there to create a profit, to make a profit, and keep money in your pocket. Uh, Simply put. So first item here, first things first, let's rip off the Band-Aid. Why do most contracting businesses hit a certain size and stop growing? You can drop your thoughts in the chat here. Um, it's it's pretty simple, but I'm going to debunk a few things here. It's do we have anyone commenting in the chat? Let me just see
Let's
here.
see. Yeah, let's see. Joe says failure in capital management.
There we
Andre says
go.
lack of bandwidth. So there's that. Failure in capital management, lack of bandwidth, lack of efficient processes, Richard says.
Don't know how to grow. I like
Yeah.
that, Megan. Okay. So it's not because you're not skilled in what you do. It's not because the customers are cheap, although many would debate me on this. And it's not because of volatile material costs, although that does impact a lot of us. Most contracting businesses don't grow because there isn't enough profit in their business. And they're like, well, thank you, Captain Obvious. We already know that. But let's break it down a little bit and get into why there isn't enough profit in most contracting businesses. Here's a simple calculation of deriving profit in your business. You have the average net profit per job times the number of jobs. Basically, if you can net $500 of net profit per job and you have, 500 jobs, that's going to get you a certain amount of profit. And so we need to look at these two variables, and I'm going to dive into, where the mistake is when we're looking to grow in our contracting or building business. So the common path to growth for many contractors is to increase the number of jobs. So we have this equation here, and we want to increase that number of jobs. Makes sense. It will drive up that profit level in your business, but adding more jobs only makes sense when the profit margins are optimized. So first things first, we want to make sure that that profit margin is healthy and at the right level. Now, that's going to depend on the size of your business and the number of jobs you have in a year, but you want to make sure that that's optimized. And now we're going to get into the numbers. So let's just say, for example, we have 211 jobs, and each job is about $4,500. That's going to generate $950,000 as your top line revenue. Your direct costs, so the cost directly related to completing that work, those costs, direct labor, materials, consumable supplies, things like that, those are going to be $550,000. It leaves you with a gross margin of $400,000. Then if you have fixed costs or operating expenses of 325,000, that will leave you with a net profit before tax amount of 75,000. And I just threw a random income tax amount in there. It's going to depend on the state, the jurisdiction that you're in, but the income tax is going to be approximately 11,000, let's just say for this example. So you're going to finish with 63,750. Now, most business owners pay themselves with that after-tax amount, meaning there isn't a lot left. 63,000 is not enough to live on these days. It's just not enough. And this model, as it's presented, is going to burn out the owner quite quickly. There's just not enough money in the bank. So we're going to throw some percentages on there. If you're finishing with a 6.7% net profit margin, that's not enough. It's not enough, especially if you're paying yourself with that money. So let's look at a different example, but we're going to add more jobs. So we're going to pile on the number of jobs. You know, that's how most contractors want to grow. We just need more leads. We need more jobs. So we're going to increase the number of jobs to 278, same average price per job. That's going to generate 1.25 million in top line revenue. That's not bad. And you can see that based on the same percentages, your cost of sales will probably go up if you increase your jobs by almost a quarter. You're going to need more management to kind of help those jobs get completed. Your gross margin is going to go up. But then your operating costs will probably go up as well because you're probably increased spending on marketing. Maybe you have now an administrative staff in your office. So those costs are going to go up. And then you can see that, there's only been a slight increase of 1.1%. You've added almost 300,000 to the top level, but you've only netted, 34,000 at the bottom. But you're working a heck of a lot more, right? So what I want to try to kind of distill down in this is that, yeah, you have 67 more jobs, an increase of 32%. You've increased revenue by 300K or 24%. So you're probably thinking, well, that's not bad. That's a good increase. But your net profit only increased by 1.1%.
Wow.
And that's a lot of work to take a little bit more home, right? So same example, 211 jobs at $4,500 a job, but let's do 190 jobs at 5,100. That's going to get us a 13% price increase. That's going to generate almost the same top line. We're going to have less indirect costs because you have fewer jobs. Your gross margin is going to be 7.8% higher. Your operating costs are going to be the same, just for this example. Your before tax profit has increased to 15.7%. Your taxes are going to go up. Successful businesses pay tax. And then you've effectively doubled your take-home after-tax dollars. You've increased it to 13.3%. So the number of jobs has gone down. Your revenue's gone up a little bit, but the price per job is what is the big needle mover in this. So we're looking at that front part of the equation. So instead of trying to increase the number of jobs, we are increasing the price that we're selling our service or product at. So number of jobs went down from 211 to 190, a 10% decrease in jobs. Our revenue went up by 19K, 2%. But the big thing is that net profit increased by $63,000 or an additional 6.6%, and it doubled. So again, we're looking at this equation. So we can look at the second half. Are we increasing the number of jobs, or are we trying to increase the net profit per job? Because I'll ask you guys now, would you physically be able to increase the number of jobs by 30%? Just think about that. Would you be able to increase the number of jobs that you're doing right now by 30%? And some of you might, says, not with our labor force. No. There's a lot of issues there. Another question though, would you physically be able to decrease the number of jobs by 10%?
I'm assuming the answer is
For
yes on
sure.
that one.
That
Yeah.
that's that's an easy one, right?
Yeah.
And so, as someone that deals with numbers all the time, so with the number of jobs, we physically have to do more. So if we want more jobs, we physically have to talk to more people, hire more people, manage more people, just do more jobs. But to increase the average net profit, we mentally have to do better. We have to think differently about what we're doing, how we're doing it, who we're doing it with. It's a mental exercise. And that's very uncomfortable for a lot of contractors and builders because your product is physical. You want to output more to feel more productive, to feel like you're growing. But the fastest growing contractors, they do things differently. They do the mental hard work. And at the end of the day, only one of these options is truly scalable.
Yeah, there's a great question, and you may be getting to this, but we had a great question in here from Jamie. He said, "How to get customers to support a price increase?" How many times do you hear that when you talk to contractors, Mark, where it's like, "No, I obviously I would like to charge more and do less, but how do I make sure that I'm getting customers to facilitate that change?"
Yeah. Yeah. So this is kind of across all industries. So I work with primarily contractors and builders. I've been an accountant working with small businesses for over a decade, and the price sensitivity is always a question. Like if I raise my prices 10%, there's going to be a chunk of my customer base that will just say no automatically.
Mm,
And so in conjunction with raising your prices, you need to make sure that you're generating more leads than you need. So it can't be done in isolation. You can't just raise your prices across the board. You need to be working on the other facets of your business. So lead generation is super important. Understanding the financials of your business is almost paramount to know, like, okay, you might be landing jobs, but if you're landing jobs at a profit margin that you need to borrow money to keep your business afloat for, it's actually probably better to not take that job.
mm.
And so I know a lot of contractors are using deposits from their next job to kind of finish up paying for their current job. And unfortunately, that's not very healthy. That's called a Ponzi scheme when you're not covering, the profit with one job with the money that's received for that job, but you're borrowing from different jobs, different deposits. So, um, just checking out some of these questions here.
Yeah.
So
Jason
one,
asked, "What?" Yeah, the one of the things we struggle with is that we sometimes take jobs at a lesser price to keep our guys busy so we don't lose them, which is an interesting question.
yeah, and that's especially in the winter, there's a lot of as things slow down, business owners want to keep their guys busy. So I understand that taking jobs at lower prices, keeps everybody busy, but we want to make sure that that is the exception and not the rule. And so, there's a lot of missed opportunity with really good, effective lead generation and marketing. And I know it's easy for me to say that as I'm sitting here, but I've seen contractors just grow sustainably gangbusters in a sustainable manner when their marketing, when their lead generation is dialed in. And again, you can't make these decisions in a silo. They need to be part of an overall strategy to become more visible, to yeah, like I said, drive those leads, to make sure that you're getting in front of the right customer that will accept the higher price. Now, there's also a conversation around, um, you might like you want to charge the premium prices, but are you um, demonstrating that you're a premium contractor? And that comes down to, are your vehicles clean? Are they wrapped? Are you wearing a clean polo? Is your team wearing clean clothes? Are they branded clothes? How are you presenting um, your estimates, your quotes. How are you following up? How fast do you follow up? Do you have, is your phone number on your website or on your truck going to your cell phone, or is there someone that is receiving calls for you? There's just all these things that need to kind of fall in place before you can consistently charge the higher prices. And I've never been a contractor. I've worked for landscaping crews and pipeline crews as a college student. And yes, I don't own a contracting company, so it's easy for me to say these things, but I see businesses that are doing these things and the prices that they can charge. You're doing the same thing. As a plumber, you're going in there, or as an electrician, you're pulling wire. You're doing the exact same thing as the next guy, but they just have a better presentation. It's not necessarily what you do, but how you do it that drives the ability to price more. Now, many contractors are on a trajectory to run out of cash, stagnate, or a burnout because they're trying to physically do more. And there is a limit. Um, you know, if there's any kind of older guys in the group, when you wake up and your back and knees and everything hurts, it's being tired could actually be your superpower when you say like, okay, I'm not going to last another 10 years in this. What do I have to change to be able to prolong my business to, sustain myself 10 years? And the answer is not doing more jobs. It's mentally, strategically thinking about how to do things differently.
So work smarter, not harder, right?
When you boil it down, yeah, that's exactly it. And I want to give you a tool now so you can work smarter. So getting and keeping the right margins is the first step. So we don't want to scale low margin, um, you know, low profit jobs, because that's the recipe to have a good solid 2 or 3 years and then finish with a bunch of debt and, maybe some money owing to the IRS, to the tax man, and just having to fold your company. Because I see that a lot where, you know, they're in building mode. They've borrowed some money. They've got lots of jobs lined up, but that debt just keeps inching up and up and up, and they've poured all their personal money into the business, and then they're 4 years in and they've got nowhere to go because they've got so much debt. It's impossible to move. So the contractors and construction companies that continue to do better, they survive and they thrive. The faster they change, the more sustainable, scalable, and happier they are. So change is very, very important. They take what hasn't worked and they make changes. It sounds super silly, but there's lots of guys that are stuck in, the way that um, they do things. And they know they need to change to get those right margins, but they're stuck doing the same thing. So they're estimating the same way, project after project. They're project managing the same way. They're watching the same KPIs, so key performance indicators, or they're not watching any at all. And their financial decisions are based on how much cash is in the bank. And that's a really bad way to know if you're actually profitable or not. You could have some cash, but maybe you had, 2 deposits come in from the next job. So you think you're flush with cash, when in reality, you are in a deep, deep hole. So how do you get and keep the right margins? So I just like this analogy. Maxwell Maltz, the author of Psycho-Cybernetics, it's a book. It's kind of an old book. I definitely recommend reading it. But he talks about missiles and how missiles work. So missiles hit their targets only after thousands of micro adjustments. We think of missiles as being, super accurate, and they're very accurate these days. But it's only because they have this relay between the target and where they are going back and forth continually, and there's micro adjustments that are happening the entire way. So these missiles are consistently acquiring data and checking where the target is against where it's currently traveling at. So there's this information exchange to the target, back to the target, and back. And each time there's information that comes back, they make an adjustment. So missile technology is not precise in one shot, but only after evaluating and correcting its position frequently. So you're not going to hit your targets right out of the gate. And I would even venture to say if you've been doing it for 10, 15 years, there's still opportunity for adjustments to be made in your business to make you more profitable. And that's the crux of what I want to share. So, getting and keeping the right margins can only be done with the right systems where you have the ability to review data and results, baseline against your goals and targets, and then make adjustments. Now, that's kind of a big thought, but think about it. So we need to start with kind of a target in mind. And that's like, okay, I can't live on $45,000 a year. I need 100 or 120. And just a side note, you're not guilty if you want to pay yourself a living wage. And there's lots of good, honest, hardworking people that want to pay everybody else before them. And I understand that. And they will leave with nothing because that's just who they are. And
Mm.
contractors are some of the most helpful people I know. Um, and they will not eat as long as their subs and their guys are taken care of, right? But you're going to run out of being able to take care of anybody if you don't take care of yourself, number one. And I'm saying like you need a living wage. You can't keep pouring money into your business. You have to create a plan where you get paid consistently and not just in the summer months, but consistently so you can take care of yourself and make sure that your business survives long term.
Mark, I think that bears repeating, just so everybody knows, is that the as many webinars as we've done, I've seen a lot of people going, well, I want to make sure that my team's taken care of. I want to make sure my crew's taken care of. I want to make sure the subs are taken care of. I want to make sure that the customer is taken care of. And many
Yeah.
times they are in dead last place, which, as you just said very well, you aren't going to be able to take care of anybody if you're not making a living wage to continue the business. So anyway, I think that was really, really important. We do have a quick poll up, not to interrupt, but the poll is, do you feel that you are paying yourself a living wage? So we have some votes coming in, and Mark, you can obviously see the results as well, but we've got several saying no, that they're not at this point.
Yeah. And it's not uncommon. And a lot of businesses, a lot of contracting businesses are a couple jobs away from going bankrupt. Um,
Mm,
a couple sideways jobs, right? Unfortunately, um, contracting and construction companies is more like the game of golf, where, I was a big team sports player. I played soccer, football, basketball growing up. But golf is a different beast altogether because you can undo 6 good holes with
yep.
one bad hole.
Mm-hmm.
And in contracting, you can wipe the profit away from 6 successful jobs with one crummy job. There's so much attention that is needed for every single job to be sustainable. Now that sounds overwhelming, but in sports and football, you have 4 or 5 big plays and you can get some points up on the scoreboard and then you just play defense for the rest of the time. You can't do that in golf. Like you have to be on every single hole. And the same with a contractor. You have to be on with every single job. And I know some jobs might, depending on the customer, they might be more of a home run. And so you can maybe not as worried about the costs about certain jobs, but that's a luxury that a lot of contractors don't have.
Right.
So
Not something just to depend on that happening every every day.
every day, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So the game is how do you get and keep those margins on as many jobs as possible? So I take a 3-step approach. There's an estimating, execution, and evaluation part of every single job. Most will just focus on the estimating. They might capture their costs in real time, but very few will do an evaluation at the end of the job to do back costing and realize that they were leaking cash in 3 phases of their 10-phase project that need to be tightened up. So just quickly, results on so it looks like 55 are paying themselves a living wage, 45% are not.
Yeah.
So estimating, so we're calculating the plan and setting the correct targets. So this is kind of the setting of the goal. So we're estimating 2 major leaks with estimating. The first major leak is missing the right details. And this is what a lot of people spend a lot of time getting right. When you get onto site or you get a new client, you want to get in there and get all the details. You want to know exactly what you're doing. Are there drawings? What's required? What's the deadline? All the details. And many owners don't hire an estimator because we know that this is a potential leak. Estimating is something that a lot of owners struggle to hand off because they want to make sure that all the details are captured. And they usually can't afford a really experienced estimator, so they hold on to that. Maybe they'll hire like a junior estimator, but there's just so much potential to go wrong in the estimating process. So that's the first major leak. And the one thing that I love about CompanyCam is that you guys make estimating so much more easy. And especially when you can get that data fed back to you, the owner, in the office while the estimator's on site. So they can go through and snap all the pictures and provide all the details, but you can review that with them. And so you can be there, but not be there and not spend your time driving to and from site and doing that work, but you can be that last review of the estimate before it's kind of put together and sent out to the customer. So I really like CompanyCam for that. And then the second leak is missing the right margins. So we got all the details, but do we apply the right markups to those details? So many owners don't price for profit, but price to get the job. So they price to get that yes from the customer. They don't price for profit. And that goes back to a lot of the reasons why, maybe they take on jobs that keep their guys busy. So there's different motivations for the pricing. It's not to get a profit. It's either to get a yes from the customer or to keep the guys employed. And those are both valid. But if we continue to use those as our motivations or our targets, we're going to run out of a profitable business pretty quick. So I have a tool that we'll go over. It is a spreadsheet. It's specifically designed to look at that estimating, execution, and evaluation standpoint. And we'll get into that in just one second. So the second step is the execution. So completing and tracking the work. I put, capitalized bold there. And I don't know if there's enough people tracking the work that's being done. Yes, we have timesheets for our guys, but are their hours allocated to phases in the business or phases of the project, sorry. And are we breaking down our projects in such a way that the guys can clock in and punch in specifically, we're doing a rough in here, or we're doing site prep here, and then, moving on to pulling wire in this part of the house, or, doing the main. I'm just trying to speak to as many trades as possible with what I'm saying, but there's phases of every single project, and how granular are you getting with those details when you're creating schedules for your guys and getting them to clock in and clock out. Because if you just allocate a lump sum bunch of hours to a project, we don't know if site prep actually took 5 hours, if it took 10 hours. And if it's taking 10 hours, like, what's going on? Like, is there a gap in training for the team? Were there issues on site that we can actually create a change order for and bill back to the customer? Things like that. If we're not tracking these things, we don't know. And the fastest way to, get a bad review is pull up a change order at the time you're doing the final walkthrough with the customer. That's how you leave a really bad taste in the customer's mouth, is when you hit them with one final invoice or cost that wasn't in the original plan, and they're just getting wind of it right now. So when we're executing, we're capturing the project data and the finances of the project. And the major leak is missed expenses here. So not capturing change orders fast enough and communicating with the customer. So I am a big proponent of using technology. So job tread here in this example. So if you're a builder, remodeler, running projects that are a little bit longer in length, beyond 2 weeks, I would definitely use something like job tread. And the nice thing is that CompanyCam bolts onto that. So the feature that I love in CompanyCam is you can send a request for payment. So let's say you reveal something to your customer that is a change order or maybe a scope change, and you want to build them right away. You don't want to take that back to the office and potentially forget about that extra amount that the customer agreed to. You can pull out CompanyCam and send them an invoice right away. Now, CompanyCam, I don't think is the right tool for taking progress payments or final payments, but it is really good for taking those smaller one-off payments where there's been a change order or a scope change, and you want to capture that right away. Make sure you get that cash up front, and you don't want to be chasing it afterwards. So that's the execution standpoint. Then looking at evaluation, so identifying what went right and what went wrong. And this is a thing that many people don't have enough time to do. They're already looking at the next job, and they don't want to go back and look at an old project, right? Like, who wants to do that? We're like, we got to move on. But unfortunately, this is where all the cash leaks get exposed in a real way. So major leak, not reviewing what actually happened compared to your plan. And in that spreadsheet, I have a little section where we can go over estimated versus actual and look at the KPIs of your projects in a meaningful way. So we'll look at everything in action here. I'm just going to pull up hide here. Just going to pull up. This is a bulletproof pricing template, which I'll make available for download at the end of the presentation here. So what we have two major tabs. There is an empty tab that you can use to populate with your own information, and I've seen clients use this and just duplicate it and just reuse that blank tab over and over again. When you get this spreadsheet, just click this hyperlink up above, and it will get you to a read-only copy, and you can download it and just save it to either as an Excel file onto your computer or save it to your own Google Drive. And there's a few instructions here, but what we want to do is get into first, what your expected revenue would be in the following year, or the last 6 months of the year, or whatever position you're in your fiscal year, and then the number of jobs. So the best estimate would be what you did last year. And again, this isn't going to be perfect. It's going to get better as you continue to stay in your numbers and review your numbers frequently. But what we have here is total estimated revenue. And then we have all your fixed costs. So these are the costs that don't change during the year, and they're not dependent too much on the number of jobs that you're doing. So we have bookkeeping, accounting, maybe you have an administrative assistant, an office manager, maybe you do some advertising. And I do blow out advertising. As I mentioned before, lead generation is important. And advertising is, the vehicle for that. So, branding is the clothes that you have for yourself and the team, client events, like meeting with clients, like big clients don't necessarily Google you and find you through your Google ad, but it's through your network. So client events can be a significant lead generator for contractors that want to rub shoulders with more affluent clients, right? You need to be present, you need to be visible. Clothing, digital marketing, networking, referrals, signs, door hangers, all important things to think about when building your marketing and lead generation systems. And then we have other things in here, bank fees, CRM costs. So if, you're using a proposal tool or you're using JobTread, CompanyCam, it's in there, training, benefits. Now keep in mind, these are not direct wages. These are just kind of all the supplemental items. Maybe you have a rented shop or some storage space or whatever it may be. And again, these are just kind of arbitrary, just threw them in. And then a 15% tax rate. And that's just calculated on 10% of the revenue. Again, this is just a placeholder. This is not going to be your true tax rate in your jurisdiction, but just as a placeholder, because we want to make sure that tax is accounted for. And then what we have here is we have all of your fixed costs. And then we have your revenue. And then your fixed costs as a percentage. So 19% of your revenue is going to be eaten up with these fixed costs. And what that means is that over 36 jobs, $4,900 of each job is going to go towards paying your overhead. So um, before you make any money uh, to keep any profit, you need to pay almost $5,000 to cover your fixed costs per job. Now, keep in mind, this is assuming that each job is about the same length, so 36 jobs in a year. That's about, one and a half every week. But if your jobs vary, I have some clients that have 4 jobs a week and another client that has 4 jobs a year. So just keep in mind that when you use this allocation, that it's used properly and that there is a little bit of wiggle room in there. So if you have a job that's a month long, there's probably going to be more overhead allocated to that job than a job that only lasted 3 days. So now we have the fixed expenses part of your business, and then we're going to get into the variable expenses. So this is a spreadsheet that I prepared. Again, the estimating, execution, and evaluation segments are all in here. And up top here, we have labor rates. So maybe you have a project manager, maybe a journeyman, an apprentice. And I try to be granular. And I know this might seem like a lot, but the more detail that you can put in, the more detail and clarity you can pull out of these projects. And you don't have to do this for every single project. And I wouldn't recommend using a spreadsheet for building your estimates every single time. The whole purpose of this spreadsheet is to help you understand, um, you know, breaking down your project into phases, how to price for those phases, how to capture cost by phase, and then doing that back costing to see exactly where you're losing money and where you can tighten up in the estimating process. So I think in some instances, when contractors give an estimate to their client, they're looking for that yes, and it's almost guesswork. It's almost a guesstimate that they're delivering to their customers. And some of them have enough. I have a demolition client, and he knows that a bathroom and kitchen gut is about $2,500, and so bathroom by itself would be $1,200, and so he's comfortable in saying like, yeah, I'll throw $1,200 out for a bathroom reno, and that includes a bin on site for all the garbage and debris and things like that. And he's been doing it for about 8 years, and he's probably done 200 bathrooms. So you can do things like that, but for larger, multifaceted projects that you're doing something that you maybe haven't done before, or even if you've been doing something the same way for 15 years with very little change to the price, this spreadsheet would help you kind of organize that project more methodically and be more intentional with your pricing. So on the left here, John, do you have any questions or anything?
Well, I was just so Stephen asked a good question. He was saying is fixed costs, aka overhead. Obviously, there's variable costs and there's the fixed costs. The fixed are going to be there each and every time, and the variable depends on project. But I was just going to ask one thing. Just looking at all the different costs and the things, do you find, just because you mentioned it so many times, do you find that if you were going in to kind of like look at all of these different components, do you feel like the lack of lead generation is the number one thing you run into the most? Like, because everyone's going to have a different set of costs, both fixed and variable, depending
Mhm.
on the market they're in, depending on the cost of materials, depending on, competition, on so many things. I'm just curious on that aspect of this when you're putting together these sheets. Is that one of the top things that you see every time? Like, you got to put more money in this. You've got to put more money in this. Like, is that would you say that's at the top of the list, or at least one of the top things you see?
Yeah, so I see the three big risks in a contracting company is the cash flow risk, so not collecting
Hmm.
cash fast enough.
Yeah.
It's the profit risk, so their estimates are not covering all of their costs and markup and profit. And then the final risk is lead generation risk, sorry. So you hedge, there's different you hedge these risks in different ways, but the lead generation risk is hedged or eliminated or mitigated by having more leads than you need. having more
Mm-hmm.
prospective clients than you need. And I know that, like, because the ability to say no is insurance, is the insurance that you need. So the ability to say no. So yeah, it's one of the top three is that
Mm-hmm.
lead generation. And that's going to require, that's going to increase your fixed costs. So yes, your overhead, Stephen. You're going to have to reinvest into marketing and building your network. And then you're going to invest in, you know, um, your clothes, your marketing, your vehicles. And it's this flywheel. And I share sometimes, an electrician up here charges out his team at $300 an hour. And that blows some people's minds. They're like, that is insanely high. But he's got a thriving business and he's got repeat customers, right? And it's not so much like, well, where do I find them? But like you have to be visible and he's doing all the things. He's got billboards everywhere. He's kind of a big deal in his area, but it came with time and it came with a brand and a positioning in the market. And of course, there's customers that think he's way too high, and there's other customers that love him. He's got hundreds of five-star ratings. So
Mm-hmm.
it's there is no app, there is no tool that's going to correct that. It's more of a like you know, what do you want for yourself? And I sound a little like a business coach guru here, um, but it's seriously, it's being able to charge what you're worth, and
Yeah.
and
Yep.
um, and it's kind of daunting to kind of build a plan and be like, okay, how do I pay myself $120,000 for the year? But that plan is helps you visualize what needs to happen. So you need to increase your price, your job count is going to go down. I got to pump up my marketing. I need to maybe invest in social media, like get someone that comes on site once a week and does, a bunch of content for me. Like Instagram is a missed opportunity for a lot of contractors, especially if you're doing the sexy stuff, if you're doing the finishing work. Oh man, like you need to be visible. You need to be visible. Um, so yeah, lead generation, one of the top three risks for
Yeah.
contracting business, and it's overlooked all the time.
Mm.
So on the left-hand side, we have stages and tasks, and so this is wiring a new house. And again, sorry if there's electricians in the audience and they're like, "This is crap." Okay, like let me just back. I'm not an electrician, but um, you can look at this and you can see, okay, so for each of these steps, you have materials and you have labor, and literally you just applied the number of hours for each of the roles, and then the material needed for that task. And it seems kind of daunting, but usually you can start with um, these two columns on the left side, column B and C, as a blank template. And then a panel is going to cost $1,200, and then yeah, there's always ways to make a tool like this um, fast, just with time and effort. And then these usually match. I've set up my job tread account and it matches these stages. So when you're building your estimate, it's even named in the same way with the same naming convention. And so when you go post expenses or other documents to those items, they're associated with these stage numbers. And you can even do that in CompanyCam, right? Like be super organized with how you document everything. I know that kind of sounds quirky, and I'm all about OCD sometimes with organization, but that's how I bring value. Is just when a client wants something, I have it to them right away because that's just how things are filed and how we organize everything. And so once we've captured all the materials and labor costs in the estimating component, then down below we have, total number of hours, and then we have number of days. And so we can see here, like, okay, the apprentice is probably going to be on site for 2 full days. The journeyman maybe for 8 days, and then we're going to need about 1 day worth of work from the project manager, and then we have the total costs. And then down here we have the total cost for all the materials. We're going to mark up, I don't know why 13's in there, but we're going to mark it up 13%. And then you can see here that we're going to mark up our our labor costs by 200%. And then we have a total price of almost $28,000. That's the price that we would give to the customer. And then during the work, actually before I get there, we're just going to show here, I'm just going to make a little more space here. We have our ratios based on our estimate. So we have our gross margin, our direct labor costs, and then we have a labor efficiency rate. And I'm not going to get into that too much, our labor efficiency ratio, but you want this at least 2.0. So you want to have double the margin than our cost of labor on any given job. Because labor is our biggest expense, we want to make sure that there's enough margin, and double the labor for margin is kind of what we're looking at for where we want to be. So if you have questions about that, I'd be happy to chat with anyone. I know we're kind of getting short on time. And then we have project revenue, direct costs, and then gross margin, and then gross margin percentage. And then we're going to apply the overhead from the other sheet. And then the net profit on that margin is $7,100. And then what I do is we calculate revenue per hour. So how many hours were spent on that by the team, and then gross margin per hour, and then net profit per hour. And when we get to doing jobs that are different in size, and we want to know what jobs we should market for, so lead generation for, we want to do a comparable between what gross margin per hour are we earning on these types of jobs, and what gross margin per hour rate are we earning on those types of jobs. And obviously, the jobs that have the highest rate for revenue, gross margin, net profit are the ones that you want to go after. And I think we know that because we know what jobs are more profitable, but this puts it on paper for you. And so you can do a good comparison between the types of jobs that you're estimating for. And so that's the estimate. Those are the numbers from the estimate. Then we want to drop in the execution here. So we have the material costs, and the cells light up red if we've gone over on our material costs. And so a few things went over, and we saved a few bucks on a few items, but we were $60 over on our material purchases of 10,000, which is not too bad. And then we want to pop in our hours based on the phases. And this is where you're going to lean on your time tracking tools. And then so you're going to populate all that in, and then over here we have red squares for all the overages in time. And we're nitpicky here. People might say that I'm nitpicking. Well, if we have a setup, we trench from the main service to the house, and we lay conduit, that's kind of all considered one task. Like, okay, maybe I'm too granular here, but we want to get detail, and we want to know what our guys are doing. Not necessarily to crack the whip and get them working faster, but like, how do we need to position the team? How do we need to train the team? How do we need to adjust our estimates if we don't have this data? So these cells highlight pink, and they show overages, and then you can see that overall we were, what's the sum on this? We were $335 over on our cost of labor. And so we have a comparison here. So we have the estimated and actual. Now we do a comparison. So our gross margin actually went down because we were over on materials and our time. Our direct labor was a little bit more, and so our LER actually went down. It's still in a good spot. We're still above 2. But then we got the comparison with all the other project KPIs. So we have net profit margin. We're down about 400. Profit per hour stays the same. Gross profit margin per hour has gone down, and same with net profit per hour. So again, this seems maybe like a lot of work, and maybe none of you have done back costing before, but this is the only way to understand where your leaks are. So we have a few minutes left here. I just want to jump back to the deck here, and then we'll get to wrapping up. So the financial tools and systems you use are important. You can talk to any contractor, and they know that good quality tools makes their work easier, faster, and better. Same thing with finances. You need the right financial tools in place to understand the economics of your business. and you need to nail those project economics. Like just in golf, you can undo the profit that you earned on 6 projects with one bad project, and then you're starting with zero again. So estimating, executing, and evaluating, and then everything depends on those project economics.
This is great stuff, Mark. First and foremost, I know we're running short on time, but I'll just throw this out there. If we can get Mark over, who knows, maybe he joins us on the community. We could even do some Q&A over there sometime as well at community.companycam.com. But Mark, let them know how to reach you directly as well, in case we're not going to do a community thing. But like, if they want to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so Christian just dropped in the chat there. So email
Perfect.
crew@strucs.co or mark@strucs.co. And then I'll jump over to this URL that Christian posted as well. And in just 1 second, and we'll just on the screen here, you can grab I'll just go back. You can grab the template and a trial with CompanyCam just by scanning these 2 QR codes. So, hop over to either of those or both of those sites and pick up a trial of CompanyCam and then grab that template from my site as well. And then you'll be entered into my email newsletter. I send out a bi-weekly newsletter, so just to kind of keep me top of mind when you have accounting questions, and if you want to improve your systems, your strategy, your technology, we're the firm that does that. So we do taxes, yes, and I say that kind of unexcitedly. But the real value is coming in and having a financial expert that you're not paying 100 grand for. We come in, we partner with our clients, and we really help them build and understand their systems and get them good information on either a weekly or monthly basis, depending on how aggressive they want to drive their financial strategy.
Yeah. Fantastic. It's up on the screen now if you want to scan it. Don't forget community.companycam.com and check out the Good Contractor podcast with Luke and myself, wherever you get your podcasts. But most importantly, I want to thank Mark Stovel from Strucs for joining us today. This was amazing. Tons of great stuff in here. For those that missed it or missed part of it, we will send out a copy. Oh, look, Christian's got a thread already started on the community. Links in there, kind of an after show, and we'll see if we can get Mark over there. Otherwise, I'll jump over there and ask some questions. And but yeah, it'll be a good time. But I just want to thank Mark so much. This has been so valuable for so many people. And we will get a copy of this a replay out to everybody. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Just a quick response here. Rafi, yeah, the template's free. CompanyCam, you get a killer discount for signing up. So there's a lot of value on the screen right now if you want to kind of upgrade your financial systems.
Cool. Mark, have an amazing day. Everybody, thank you for joining us. You guys have an awesome rest of your week as well. We'll talk to you next month on the web.